What's going on, guys? Welcome to NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports. And guys, today we have a banger of a show. We have Sterling Bennett of 49ers Access. He will be joining us today on the show. My microphone is freaking out right now. But the Golden State Warriors take care of business as they beat the Memphis Grizzlies and secure the 7th seed in the Western Conference. The Niners are 8 days away from the NFL Draft. Who will they take? Only time will tell. But today we're going to break it all down on what each team will take at the NFL Draft. San Francisco Giants, Oakland A's, and a whole lot more today on the NorCal Sports Report, episode 25. On IE Sports Radio. Let's go. What's up, guys? Welcome to NorCal Sports Report, episode 25 here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And today, we're going to have my good friend Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access podcast. He'll be on the show to talk about the San Francisco 49ers, and we'll be doing a mock draft on the top 11 picks in round one as we predict who each team will take and a consensus on who the Niners are going to take with the number 11 pick. That's right, Sterling, consensus. So we'll see how that kind of shakes out. We'll also be covering the Golden State Warriors and their win against the Memphis Grizzlies, securing number 7 seed. And I'll be covering the San Francisco Giants, who have been playing extremely well as of late to start the season off, who are currently in second place in the West. We'll see how long that lasts, hopefully for the whole season. They dropped one of the Phillies last night, but they play again today at 3:45 p.m. Pacific time. So that should be good. Before we get to all of that, make sure you follow IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all of which at IE Sports Radio. Check out IESportsRadio.com for a full listen catalog of all the shows we have to offer here on IE Sports Radio. Check out IE Sports Radio /shop. We have shirts, hats, sweatshirts, any kind of merchandise you're looking for. Check it out at IE Sports Radio /shop. Also, make sure you follow IE Sports Radio wherever you find podcasts, maybe Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify. Wherever you find your podcast, you'll find IE Sports Radio. And you'll find this show right here, which is the NorCal Sports Report. We're also brought to you by Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky. The jerky is on a whole other planet. I'm loving Planet Jerky. You can place an order for this jerky over at planetjerky.net or follow them on Instagram over at Planet Jerky. IE Sports Radio is also proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use promo code IESR to get 15% off their gym wear and help Vital Apparel on their journey to promote mental health awareness. So definitely check that out. We're also brought to you by Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. If you want to place an order for these wax seals, you can go to IESportsRadio.com /seal the deal wax seals. You can also follow them on Instagram over at seal the deal _wax seals. I'm trying to mess with my microphone right now. It's going to drop any second. Oh, there it goes. We're also brought to you by Raw Nutrition. Go to getrawnutrition.com and use promo code IESR to get an additional 10% off their wonderful supplements. Definitely check out Raw Nutrition over at getrawnutrition.com. Of course, use promo code IESR to save yourself an additional 10%. You can follow me over at NorCal Sports IE over on X. And you can also follow me on my personal account, which is Dre Area Sports. That's going to be on Instagram, X, and of course, like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Dre Area Sports. Right now, this show is simulcast on my channel, Dre Area Sports, and of course, on the main channel, IE Sports Radio. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to both channels, and like, share, and subscribe over on 49ers Access, because that's where you'll find Sterling Bennett. When we come back, We'll be doing our mock draft and covering a few topics on the San Francisco 49ers with Sterling Bennett of 49ers Access Podcast. You're listening to the NorCal Sports Report, episode 25 on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Minutes past the hour here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And today I am joined by my good friend Sterling Bennett of 49ers Access Podcast. Sterling, what's going on, man?
Nothing much, brother. Happy to be on. Happy to talk the first 11 overall picks in the 2025 NFL Draft. Maybe there's 3 quarterbacks. Maybe there's 2 quarterbacks. Maybe it's 11 quarterbacks that go. I'll tell you this, though, Dre. It's going to be one of the more unpredictable first rounds in recent years for the NFL.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talked before about the possibility that you literally could have 3 quarterbacks going in the first 10 picks. And so for the Niners, it's like, hey, look, if that happens, that's just money in the bank. Like, yes, someone's going to drop, someone's going to fall, and it's going to be great. Now, let's just say 3 quarterbacks go. So let's say, obviously Cam Ward's going to go probably number 1. And we talk about, the possibility that Shedeur Sanders could go number 3. And then let's say Jackson Dart goes later on. And we're looking at a lot of teams here, not just the Giants, but you look at the Jets, you look at the Saints. They're all in need of a quarterback. Yeah, the Jets got Justin Fields, but I don't think that's the answer long term. So if 3 quarterbacks go in the first 10 within the first 10 picks, what player do you think has a possibility of being pushed out of the top 10 just due to the fact that teams will be taking quarterbacks?
Yeah, so I think when you look at this year's draft, a lot of the strengths are defensive line. There's some top-tier edge rushers, but there really isn't, the bona fide top 3. It's like one really great blue chipper in Abdul Carter. You like Mike Green, but there are some red flags. And then it's a bunch of, kind of pick your poison, who fits your scheme the best. There's some offensive linemen you like, Harmon, Will Campbell. But I think if there's going to be a faller, if you will, I would not be shocked to see McMillan fall from Arizona. I know the Jets may want him. You can argue a team like the Saints could want him. However, with the needs a lot of these teams have in that first 10 picks, I really would not be shocked to watch him fall out of the top 14 of this year's draft.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think McMillan could easily fall out. The player I would love to fall to the Niners, but I know he won't, would be like Mason Graham. I really like what I've seen out of Mason Graham when I'm watching his highlights and his videos. I got a bunch of player breakdowns over on my channel under NFL Draft Content. I just did one on James Pierce Jr. And that's another guy who I think will be available at 11, but I still don't think the Niners would take him unless they were picking in the late 20s. Then maybe that's a possibility. But to me, and I caught a lot of heat for this on X. People were going at me for this. I compared him to Leonard Floyd. I was like, dude, this guy's like Leonard Floyd 2.0. And everyone's like, no, he's not. You haven't watched the video. I'm like, look, I say that because of his size and his height. They're both 6'5". They're both relatively around the same weight. They're both kind of lanky, thinner, faster defensive ends. Now, Leonard Floyd is not as fast as he used to be, but that's what he reminds me of, is a guy that, is quick and tries to get around the edge to get to the quarterback. He still has to bulk up and gain more size if he wants to have a bigger impact on the run game. But people were just going at me yesterday, and I was just like, oh my gosh, which is just really, really funny. But I think that, going back to who would be kicked out of the first out of the top 10, like I said, I would love Mason Graham, but I don't think that's a possibility, because I think even if he got as close as the Bears, they would probably draft him. Because, why wouldn't you? Jesus. But I think if anyone gets pushed out, I don't think it'll be Will Johnson. It's possible, because offensive linemen kind of get the shaft sometimes. I think Armand Membu might have a chance to be pushed out. Travis Hunter will not break the top 10. I don't even think he'll break top 5.
He'll break top 2.
Yeah. And I mean, the lowest he'll go is 4, I think. And that's if the Giants were like, we'll take Shedeur Sanders. Like, then he'll go the very next. He'll go next. But I've been thinking about this a lot about who would fall, like who would be pushed out, and I think it'd be either Ted McMillan, Armand Membu, and really I could see Shedeur Sanders falling to 11, which the Niners are not going to draft him. And the team might get desperate enough to make a trade with San Francisco to acquire him. And that's where it could benefit the Niners, is that if Shedeur Sanders is available at 11, a team might make a move just to say, hey, let's move up a few spots and get a quarterback because we need one bad, or we want to take a chance on this guy. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, there was talk about the Niners possibly that they have reached out to multiple teams picking the top 6 about a potential trade up. Okay, this came courtesy of 49er Sports Talk. Now, I think every team inquires about, hey, if we were to move up, what are you looking for? Trying to, gauging the environment, seeing, hey,
sure,
if this were a case, what do we do? Or what would you need? And so I think by default, every team is going to do that. So I don't really see it as like breaking news. I think it's breaking news that someone's saying it out loud and everyone's like, oh, but but what do you think? Do you think San Francisco would actually make a trade to move up? And if they did make a trade, who do you think they'd make the trade to get?
Yeah, so sure, has San Francisco maybe called a team like the Raiders or maybe a team like the Jaguars and said, hey, what will it take to go up and move up, 6-7 spots? That said, do I think it's likely? No. Do I think it happens? No. I don't think San Francisco's in the business of trading up for players not named Mason Graham and not named Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, which I don't think any of those players fall. You can argue Mason Graham, albeit he could go top 3, and I wouldn't be shocked. That said, the Niners this year have 11 draft picks. They have 3 inside the top 100. It's 11, 43, 75, and pick 100. You have a few more picks just out of that top 100, and I think for the Niners, they'd be more active trying to get back into late day two, kind of later round 3 picks compared to think of, 6 picks in the first round to get Mason Graham or company, where you can probably still get Walter Nolan. You can probably get Derrick Harmon, maybe Mike Green's there, or you can even, although I don't think a trade back's likely, I do think the Raiders would want to trade back knowing either they want Ashton Genty or they want to get a cornerback because they have no cornerbacks in that room. I think they'd be a spot for Will Johnson, maybe a Jahdae Barron, albeit I don't love Jahdae Barron that much in comparison to the consensus. But I just don't think San Francisco would do it. I don't think San Francisco needs to do it. I don't think the gap from, you had Mason Graham clear-cut number 1, but I don't think even Mason Graham, for as great as he is probably worth losing pick 11, probably pick 75, and probably a day 2 pick next year. They need those draft picks. They saw they saw the negative side of trading away 3 first-round draft picks for Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. You can clearly say now that had they not made that move, they probably would have been holding a Lombardi trophy a couple of years ago.
Right.
But so they got to have their picks this year.
That's true. I 100% agree with you, but this is the Niners, and they've been aggressive. A team that have been aggressive. And so do you think that this could be a case where they say, hey, look, what if we trade future draft picks, move up, and get our Mason Graham, get a guy we really want without having to give up too much in the rest of this draft? I could see them doing that, saying, let's just go for it, because they're always aggressive. They're always trying to make a move. But to be honest, I don't see anybody in this draft that they would move up that hard to get. Abdul Carter would be amazing opposite Nick Bosa. But I think in order to get Abdul Carter, you're talking about the first 3 picks.
Yeah.
And I think, when you look at, let's say, I don't know, the Raiders and maybe the Jaguars, those are teams that maybe would trade back because they do have some assets already that they could still pick up more picks and add more pieces. But a lot of these teams are rebuilding, and I don't think they're like the Giants are not going to move out of 3. They're such an awful franchise anyway. They wouldn't even handle that right. But I think there's a chance that if a guy like Mason Graham falls to number 6, the Niners might call and say, hey, what would you want for that pick? Likely, it may even be the number 11 pick. But if the Niners were able to make a move to acquire the number 6 pick and keep number 11, which would be crazy, I think that they'd be more inclined to be like, hey, we're going to get 2 essentially top 10 picks. Let's do this. But at what cost, But I think every team has reached out to figure out, kind of gauge how much it would cost to make those moves. But based on the way the Niners have worked free agency, have done their NFL draft before, it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to make a move, a splash to do that. But all indications are that they're not going to do that because they want to be a little more conservative and be more strategic when it comes to this year's NFL draft. The other topic I want to bring up before we get to our actual draft is that there's been talk that the Niners may be a team that might try to make a trade for Jalen Ramsey. What do you think about the idea of the Niners acquiring Jalen Ramsey? Because Deebo Samuel's not here anymore.
Right.
He's out of the room, so it's like, well, he's gone. We could bring him in, and that would shore up our entire secondary for the most part. Imagine having Ramsey, Ronaldo Green, and Diamador Lenore out there, and that's pretty formidable for a secondary.
So I think on paper, it certainly intrigues you. Big name, guy that's been very successful. You can argue, one of the best cornerbacks of the last decade or so. That said, Ramsey's older. I think he's like 30 years old. You're already paying Lenore a ton of money. You don't want to pay 2 cornerbacks big money after you just gutted your entire defensive line, where you saved like $3 million by cutting Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd combined. Like, I just don't see that being a fit. Now, scheme fit, sure. Played in the Rams for a long time. Still a serviceable player. That said, do the Niners really need, and this kind of goes back into the draft conversation, because we see so many pundits, analysts, whoever it may be on ESPN or Fox or their own podcasts or whatnot, mocking the Niners to draft a cornerback at 11, whether it's Shedeur Barron or Will Johnson.
I don't get
whoever
that.
else. It doesn't make sense. Like, this team, yes, could use a 3rd cornerback. They have Trey Brown. They like Darrell Luter Jr., but you can find that 3rd potential cornerback likely on day 3 or day 2 late, maybe early day 3. Again, San Francisco has more potential of trading up on day 2 or early day 3 and getting a top cornerback. Kobe Bryant could be a name out there. A Jacob Parrish is somebody I like from Kansas State, and others. Zoff Frazier's a pretty good one. From UTSA, probably going to be a day 3 pick. That said, everybody we push back on saying they're not going to go cornerback at 11, but then it's go trade for Jalen Ramsey, who's a higher price, higher paid, older cornerback. It's the exact same answer to both. No, and Jesus, no.
He is a good corner. Has he seen better days? I think he has. I think his Rams days, the Jags and the Rams, that's when he was at his peak. And now with the Dolphins, he's just a household name out there running around. But we would have to see. And I think that if they were to make a trade, it'd have to be like, hey, we'll make the trade, but he has to restructure his contract. We're not paying him $25 million. That's guaranteed money going straight to him. I don't think that's worth $25 million in Jalen Ramsey. If he restructured it and he turned some of that into signing bonuses and all that, then I think they would consider this move.
Well, I think a lot of it's how you view the 49ers in 2025, because trading for Jalen Ramsey, albeit it isn't a 1-year deal, it's kind of an all-in move, right? You're getting a top-tier cornerback. And I just don't – well, I do think San Francisco wants to contend. You can completely buy into the idea when you have Kittle and returning Aiyuk whenever he comes back, probably in November at some time. You have Trent Williams still, who I know he has the ankle injury, but he looks to be refreshed and is talking about working out already this early in the offseason. You have Christian McCaffrey, hopefully back healthy. You're going to pay Brock Purdy big money. You have Fred Warner. And if you make a ton of your picks this year and you hit on those guys, like, there's no reason why San Francisco could not be in Rams 2023 territory, be a wild card. Maybe you win the division if they're lucky. But they still have top-tier talent. However, by the way Jed York's talked, the way John Lynch has talked, all indications are it's like we have to hit on these picks. The way the offseason is gone, I don't see San Francisco being aggressive on day one or trading for a top end or a higher paid talent of Jalen Ramsey. However, if there is one team I think could use Jalen Ramsey, I think can fit his contract in their books and is picking inside the top 10, although I don't think that they'd trade pick 8, the Carolina Panthers, to me, make a ton of sense for Jalen Ramsey.
I could see Carolina going for that, definitely. I mean, Jalen Ramsey, his overall PFF ranking was 76.9. Compare that to Demo Lenore, who's at 67.3. So Ramsey had a higher rating in PFF if you rely on PFF. I mean, granted, though, Demo is 25 years old. Ramsey is 30. So I think he'd be at the limit of age-wise where I want to go in corner and how old I want to go. But I do agree that if you go for Jalen Ramsey, then essentially you're saying we're going all in. That's kind of a move you would do like 2 years ago. If this was 2 years ago and you made that move, everyone would be like, "Oh, here we go."
It's a reckless spending move they would have made last year.
Yeah.
But if you look last year, they gutted the entire roster. So, yeah, not going to happen.
Taryn. Okay, so now that we covered those few topics I want to get to, let's do this. We're going to do a mock draft of the first round. Now, in this mock draft, we're going to predict the picks for the top 10 teams and then do a consensus pick on number 11 on who San Francisco is going to select. Now, we're not going to do any trades, so we're not going to get wild and start, making trades left and right, but we are going to go ahead and do this. So let me go ahead and share this screen. Where is it? Okay. This new thing they have where you can pick accounts on Chrome, it throws me off every time. Because I had one window with a different account open, so I couldn't share it because it was just like, what's going on? Okay, here we go. So this is on Pro Football and Sports Network. I'm not cool like Sterling and have PFF at my disposal, but here we go. Okay, so we're on the clock as the Titans. And we have the first pick in the draft. If it's me, it's Cam Ward. Because I can't go another season with Will Levis. After what I saw last season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, Cam Ward is probably the only quarterback, although I don't think he has the elite potential as previous first overall quarterbacks. Like, he's not Andrew Luck, he isn't Trevor Lawrence. He is by far and away this draft's best quarterback.
Yeah.
The Titans have basically told the entire NFL, we're not taking Shedeur, we're not going Abdul Carter. It is a Cam Ward's world. I think he was asked yesterday of who's your top 4 receivers? And he goes, Calvin Ridley and Treylon Burks. And it was like, what the hell? Okay, I guess you're a Tennessee Titan already. So
awfully selective there.
Yeah, it was very clear Cam Ward is a Titan. That pick is already in for the NFL draft.
This was like the last year with what's his face on the Bears. What was his name?
Williams, yeah.
Caleb Williams. I was going to say Jalen Ramsey. That's not Caleb Williams was like, Caleb Williams told the punter, he was like, man, they're not going to use you very often this year.
Right. And they punted the entire season.
And they sucked so bad. Okay, so we're going to say Cam Ward is the number 1 pick in the draft. He's locked in. Now we go to the Browns.
Yeah.
Now, the Browns this is where they're kind of in a pickle because they got this guy named Deshaun Watson that they really don't want anymore, but they're stuck with him.
Yeah.
Do you think the Browns could make a move for a quarterback? I don't think they do. I don't think Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart are that good of prospects that you take them at number 2. I think I don't think it's Will Campbell because they hate their quarterback anyway, so why would they want to protect him? They're like, no, just let him get hurt again.
That's fair.
I think the safest pick for them would be Abdul Carter.
The safest pick, I would push back and say that if you're the Browns and you need to revitalize your franchise, you've took a big swing into Deshaun Watson and it just cratered your entire organization. Yes, Abdul Carter is a home run here, bona fide top 3 player in this draft, probably number 2 on my list. However, This team needs receiver help. They have Jerry Jeudy, but they need cornerback help too. And I think you want to get the best player in this draft by far. You go Travis Hunter, which gives you the freedom to either early on day 2 in round 2 or trade back up in the first round and go get Shedeur Sanders as well. You get 2 Colorado boys. You get all the media attention you want. It brings hype back to the franchise. You get a dual threat, arguably one of the best players the draft has ever seen in Travis Hunter. He can be your number 1 cornerback. He can be your number 1 receiver. They can pair great with Shedeur Sanders, albeit I don't love Shedeur Sanders that much as a quarterback at the NFL level. But I think you go Travis Hunter here. I think it makes the most sense. You have the need. You just re-sign Myles Garrett to a massive deal. You can argue you can have 2, dual edge rushers that are just amazing, but the bigger need, I think the better fit, honestly, if you want to get Shedeur Sanders, is Travis Hunter. And even if you don't like Shedeur Sanders, you still have to have a receiver to throw to and a cornerback to lock down the opposing receivers.
And he's been very coy about playing both positions. He's like, well, if I did both, my career would be pretty short. And he hasn't committed to saying, yeah, I would do a receiver. I'd be a receiver and a cornerback. He stated before that he'd do one or the other, or that he'd be a corner. Either way, he's a phenomenal player at either position. My thing is that if you have Abdul Carter, at this point, Myles Garrett is your franchise player. And so Myles Garrett, it's almost like they're treating Myles Garrett like he's the quarterback. So like, hey, let's give him Abdul Carter so that he's even more happy on defense. He's got another edge rusher across from him. But you know what? I like Travis Hunter a lot. So let's go with that. Let's go with Travis Hunter and shake things up. Travis Hunter will be our number 2 pick. Now we go to the New York Giants. And this is where things get kind of spicy because the Giants also kind of need a quarterback. They got Russell Wilson.
And they got Jameis Winston. Hey, don't forget, brother. Hey, 30 for 30 every single year. 30 for 30.
Is there a chance that the Giants take a quarterback at number 3?
Is there a chance? Sure, but I think the Browns and the Giants are going to be fighting to trade back in the first round to see who can actually pull a deal off. The one question I have about the Giants that I don't have about the Browns is the Browns seem pretty confident in Andrew Berry to turn things around. They let him go get Deshaun Watson. They let him redo Myles Garrett's deal and pay him a ton of money. With the Giants, this is like you got to find a quarterback, and I think getting Russell Wilson in there, getting Jameis Winston in there, I hate to break it to any Giants fan, but even if you draft Shedeur Sanders here, he's not starting on day 1. You can argue he's your 3rd best quarterback on your roster on day 1. And with that in mind, I think that is how both these teams view Shedeur Sanders. I don't think any team in the first round is going to take Shedeur Sanders, barring a trade up after already making their pick early. If it was me, there's 2 players you like here. You like Abdul Carter, obviously, my number 2 player in this draft, and you like Mason Graham a ton. And you can summon either one of those. Mason Graham, start with him. You pair him with Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and you put Mason Graham in there. You have arguably one of the best front fours in football. They'll get after the quarterback. You have Jaden Daniels. You have Jalen Hurts. You have to be able to stop those quarterbacks in the NFC East. And you also have Dak Prescott. And the best way to stop opposing offenses is getting to the quarterback, getting sacks, and stopping the run. You got Saquon Barkley you have to go up against. I'm sure at some point the Commanders are going to draft the running back in this year's class, and they already have Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. So you can sell me on Mason Graham. I'd probably go Mason Graham here because the other way to look at this is if you get Abdul Carter, and I think the way the Giants can trade up for Shedeur Sanders is trading away Kayvon Thibodeau, who's been inconsistent, who they got to pay him big money after this year. So I think there is a way they draft Abdul Carter, and if they want to get Shedeur Sanders still, although I wouldn't do it knowing they have Russell and Jameis in the building, draft Abdul Carter, package a pick or 2 with Kayvon Thibodeau, and get back in the first round with the team, let's say like the Houston Texans, right, who have a ton of picks, but if the tackle they like isn't there, maybe they want to move back about 10 picks and get a tackle in the second round compared to the first round.
I mean, I like the idea of Mason Graham going to the Giants because he does solidify that interior defensive line, which is going to help them tremendously. I also like Abdul Carter because it gives another threatening pass rusher on the edge and they need to essentially, rebolster this defense because their offense is going to have problems probably all year long because of the fact that they don't really have a true number one quarterback. Sorry, Russell Wilson, but you are a Seahawk. So let's go. To me, it's down to Mason Graham or Abdul Carter. But I think Mason Graham fills the needs that they need in terms of that interior defensive line. And they already have an edge rusher in Thibodeau. Obviously, they would look to trade him if they drafted Abdul Carter. So let's go with Mason Graham. No, the Niners are calling. They want Mason Graham. We're going to make a trade. Okay, so let's go with Mason Graham at number 3. He's going to be stoked.
And this makes pick 4 so much easier for us.
Abdul Carter.
Yeah, it's easy. Mike Vrabel basically told the media yesterday, we're not taking the tackle at pick 4, so I think it makes the most sense in the world. Go Carter here. Solidify your defense. You already paid big money for a lot of players on that side of the football.
Yeah.
And you have a defensive-minded head coach again. You sign Harold Landry. You fix your interior. Go get what many say is the consensus number 1 pick in this draft at Abdul Carter.
Okay, so here we go. Abdul Carter is going to the Patriots. That's in every mock draft. He doesn't get. That's the farthest he'll go is 4, and then he goes to the Patriots. If he fell to 6, I don't even think the Raiders would trade away from that guy. Imagine having Abdul Carter and Max Crosby on the same line. Oh,
and Tyree Wilson, and they'd also have, oh my God, who was the guy they just signed last year? Christian Wilkins from the Dolphins last year.
Yes.
Like it'd be awesome.
Okay, so now we're at number 5 with the Jaguars. At this point, you can go Will Campbell or we can go Harmon Membu. I think they're going to go offensive line because they want to protect Trevor Lawrence, who's constantly running for his life. So I would imagine that. I could see them going. I don't see them doing Tyler Warren.
No.
I don't see Ashton Genty. I mean, I could see Tyler Warren. I mean, as an option.
Or they released Evan Ingram this year, who is kind of a slot receiver anyways.
They lost Luke Farrell. They're like, how do we replace him?
I could see them liking Tyler Warren, and I wouldn't be shocked about it. That said, you got to keep your quarterback upright. I think Will Campbell's the pick here.
Yeah, Will Campbell.
Whether it's a tackle or the interior, I think it makes the most sense. They traded away Cam Robinson last year. They lost Brandon Scherff a couple years ago, who was one of their best right guards in franchise history. I'd go Will Campbell here, protect your quarterback, and keep him upright for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's either Will Campbell or Harmon Membu. And Membu was hot for a while. Remember that? Everyone was like, this guy's a can't miss. And then he cooled down.
Well, a lot of that is because a lot of people don't view Will Campbell as a tackle and Membu being the best, archetype as a tackle in this year's draft. That's why you saw him so high. But I think Will Campbell can be a tackle, albeit he has shorter arms, which may hold him back. However, even if he is a guard, you have a 10-year vet who's probably going to be an all-pro every single year for the next decade.
They say he's got small arms. So I guess if you draft Will Campbell, then you got to make sure you get, what was his name? From the corner.
Mac McWilliams from
Mac McWilliams.
in round 7.
The little arms.
Man.
Okay, so we're going to go.
Rex team. Man, this dinosaurs, Roman Jackson.
Okay, we're going to go Will Campbell at number 5 to the Jaguars. That pick is in. And now we're the Raiders. And we got to figure out who the fuck are the Raiders going to draft.
You got Gumshoe and Pete Carroll and Tom Brady in charge now.
Yeah, you got Beavis and Butthead in charge with Tom Brady. Look, I think if you want to go traditional Raiders, they would pick Shedeur Sanders. That's if...
They got Geno, man. Geno's locked up. They're going to be somewhat competitive. They may suck.
I think so.
They're going to be competitive.
I think so, but I mean, the Raiders could go Will Johnson and go for a corner as well.
So the debate I've seen and I've had with myself is that they desperately need a cornerback. They have nobody. Nate Hobbs left for the Packers, I think, this past offseason. They need a cornerback big time. Pete wants to run the defense. He wants to run the Seattle cover 3 stuff they do. However, Pete also loves himself a Marshawn Lynch, and I'm not saying Ashton Genty is that, but I would not be shocked to watch Pete say, give me my Marshawn Lynch, per se, in Las Vegas, and just go berserk and say, we're going to run the football 35 times a game and dare you to stop us.
I went to the Raiders to see their depth chart, and it says the Las Vegas Raiders depth chart will not be available. Oh, will be available in the fall of 2025. You can't show me last year's? What the fuck?
Go to ESPN, man.
I know. I don't know why I went to the official Raiders website. I agree. I think Ashton Genty's gonna be their guy. The other guy I can see them taking a chance on would be maybe like a Jalen Walker, someone they feel could be a linebacker, edge rusher. Just the Raiders do weird moves, man. I can see the Raiders taking Shamar Stewart. Just all of a sudden, like, whoa, really? You went that early? God, these guys just don't care.
Well, but they already have Tyree Wilson, who is very much like Shamar Stewart, where it's like not a lot of production, but a ton of traits. Do you want to do that again?
If Al Davis was there, he'd be targeting Shedeur Sanders or Ted McMillan.
If Al Davis was there, he would want the 4.2 speedster Isaiah Bond out of Texas, who has
that's the guy.
Like he wants his Darius Hayward Bay, and you're like,
Darius
what
Hayward
are we
Bay.
doing? I know you like speed, brother, but my goodness.
I remember
like Henry Ruggs. Like, you're just like, dude, we can't do this every year.
When they drafted DHB, I remember Mel Kiper was like, I don't get this pick. I don't get it at all.
Mel will usually feed you a bunch of goods. So when Mel says, I don't get it, you're like, this is a terrible draft pick for the team.
So I think we go Ashton Genty to the Raiders. I think that's going to fulfill a lot of their needs. So we'll go Ashton Genty. The Jets are on the clock. Now, the Jets, they signed Justin Fields. They do have some talent over on defense as well. And I know that, is it the Jets or is it the Eagles? And the Eagles are trying to move Bryce Huff, but he used to play for the Jets. So if you're the Jets, where do you go with this pick? This could be a Will Johnson. This could be an Armand Membu. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback.
No. I think Justin Fields is their guy for at least a year. I think they view this year as kind of a influx. Let Aaron Glenn and the new GM kind of see how the roster is built out, get the best player available here. I think it's Armand Membu. They let Morgan Moses go. They lost Smith last year as their tackle. I know last year they were trying to go forward there Aaron Rodgers. However, you have to have a tackle. You have to have a right tackle. Will Campbell's not there. I think this is a clear-cut Armand Membu pick. You can maybe pitch me on McMillan here. However, you have Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
You can probably find a better receiver or a more fitting receiver for you on day 2. They have an early day 2 pick. So I go Membu here and just kind of run that to the board as fast as I could.
Yeah. I think he's the most impactful player that's available right now. So that's top 10 quality. Yeah. So let's go Armand Membu at number 7. Now we're at the lonely Carolina Panthers. I don't think they'll take a quarterback because, Bryce Young did show
last year at the end of the year.
He looked good at the second half of the year after he got benched. He looked horrible early on. The
team was also terrible.
The whole team is terrible. That's the thing. But I think when it comes to the Panthers, I've seen some mock drafts have them taking Will Johnson. I think Ted McMillan is the guy that they might go after because they need to give Bryce some weapons.
Who was the guy last year? He has like the Southern draw. I'm forgetting his name. South Carolina. After Pearsall. Oh my goodness. I'll find it really fast.
Well, they got the other guy too. That used to be for the
Xavier Legette.
But they also got the veteran as well.
Jalen Coker's there. Adam Thielen's there.
There we go.
I don't think they need a receiver here. If it was me, I would probably go with Jalen Walker.
Thank you, Shopper Reacts.
I think Evero, their DC, I think he wants that kind of can do it all. Swiss Army knife. Is he an edge rusher? Is he a linebacker? He can kind of do a lot of things for you. They may tell him to pick a position, but I think they wouldn't mind that kind of coverage edge rusher if they can have that on the outside for them. I go Jalen Walker here, get him off the board. You don't want Shedeur. I don't think they want Will Johnson. And in my perfect world, they trade for Jalen Ramsey and get them a corner to pair with J.C. Horn. Yeah. So I think you go Walker here and just feed your defense entirely. They paid a ton of money on defense again. I think they're going to surprise some teams this year. I think if they can kind of get a star on defense to help them out, I would not be shocked. And Dan Morgan, former linebacker, now their GM, I think they value the position a lot. I would go Jalen Walker here from Georgia.
All right, let's go Jalen Walker. If it's not Jalen Walker, another surprise pick could be Shamir Stewart. I can see him going for with an edge rusher, but he's still kind of a project though, because I mean his overall output in terms of sacks was not very high when he played for Texas A&M. Ted McMillan, only because I feel like they need to kind of bolster that receiving core. You have Adam Thielen, but he's getting hella old.
Yeah.
You have Xavier Legette, but it's kind of like a rebuild. And let's give Bryce some options. You know, what I mean, let's give him some targets. But let's go Jalen Walker because I agree that they need that defensive playmaker.
You can also go Mike Green here too.
Well, too late.
Well, yes, but if
the pick's in.
Rewrite. Get the white out. Get the white out.
Let's just start over again now. Okay, so now we're at number 9 with the Saints.
This is a tough one.
This is a tough one. I can see the Saints saying Shedeur Sanders because of the problems they're having with Carr, his shoulder injury.
Yeah.
They could go Jackson Dart. They can go Will Johnson. I think when it comes to the Saints, it's either going to be one of these two, Shedeur Sanders or Will Johnson. I don't think they're going to go Ted McMillan. I don't think Tyler Warren. I don't really think any of these guys because their quarterback position is their most pressing issue. Imagine if he goes down. Who's their current backup? I don't even know who it is. I'd have to look it up.
Kid from South Carolina who was at Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler.
That's not who. It is Spencer Rattler.
Also there? Is Jake Haener still there?
I have to find their depth chart, but still, like
Yikes.
that is that's not good. It's Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, and then Ben DiNucci. Well, who even knows if he's still there?
Cowboy legend, Cowboy TikTok legend. Can I pitch you on the idea that this team, although yes, may need a quarterback if Derek Carr's injury or him maybe being irritated enough to just kind of sit out the year with the shoulder injury and kind of get it fixed, according to the new reports that came out. However, you have a new head coach in Kellen Moore. I don't think this quarterback class is worth a damn. Frankly, I don't think it's that good.
It's not.
I think whatever quarterback they like, they can probably find on day 2. I'd rather take a chance on Jackson Dart or Tyler Shugg on day 2 than Shedeur Sanders in round 1. That's only from a pure value standpoint, not from a talent standpoint whatsoever. That said, last year, Chris Olave had a ton of concussions. I think for a new team, a new head coach, a new regime in a rebuild, they know they're not going to be good no matter which quarterback they bring in. You can I think this is a spot where Marion Hampton could go, although I don't think he will go here. I think McMillan makes a ton of sense. He's the best receiver on the board for me. If Olave's concussions are a major problem, he may have to retire in the next couple years if it happens again. So I would go McMillan here from Arizona, get a receiver, whether it is Jackson Dart in round 2 or Tyler Shugg, you got to have someone to throw to. And if Olave is hurt, get the best receiver on the board who has kind of fallen to you at pick 9.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their depth chart, you got Brandon Cooks, you got Chris Olave, you have
an injury,
Bud Means, Kevin Austin Jr., Dante Pettis. So, I mean, their receiving core is fairly thin. It's not like it's budding with talent. So let's go Ted McMillan because of the Olave concussion syndrome. So we'll go Ted McMillan to bolster their receiving core. Now we're at the Chicago Bears. Ooh. I think at this point, you can go Shamir Stewart, you can go Tyler Warren, or you can go Will Johnson. I mean, of course, you can go anywhere. But I think when you look at the top players that are available, I think they could go Will Johnson to try to fortify that corner position across from what's his name, Johnson, the guy they have,
Jalen
Johnson.
You could argue that. I have a feeling that Will Johnson's not going to be a top 10 pick. I think they like Kyler Gordon. They like Tyreek Stevenson a ton. I think Stevenson was a cornerback celebrating in talking at fans on the Hail Mary from the Commanders last year. So there's kind of a stain on his name currently, but had a really good year last year for the Bears. I don't know who else is on the board. You can maybe pitch me on Mike Green here, get an edge rusher, pair him with, oh my goodness, the guy from the Commanders that got traded over.
Montez Sweat?
Yes, thank you. They're not going to go receiver. They went and re-signed DJ Moore last year. They brought in the guy from Washington during the draft last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to go cornerback. They don't need a quarterback. Maybe you go Tyler Warren, but they have Cole Kmet, which maybe they don't care. Ben Johnson's now in charge. You could really pitch on a Marion Hampton here. Although a very different running back from Jahmyr Gibbs, a lot of the comparisons are made there. I don't think they're the same whatsoever. Maybe you go with Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson from Ohio State. There's a lot of talk, a lot of heat on 3 running backs in this first round this year, which is rather shocking knowing how deep this class is. However, I wouldn't be too surprised. Show me the offensive line stuff. I don't think it's going to be great. Probably Kelvin Banks and Josh Simmons still. Yeah.
Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons.
You don't love that.
Tyler Booker.
No.
Gray Zabel.
Gray Zabel's great. I don't think they've
but
filled
this is
3 of their offensive line needs.
This is number 10. It's a top 10 pick. I mean,
right. Go to the defense for a second.
Jalen Milrow. The defense. That's troll Johnny. I think defense is where they're going to go. I really do. Yeah. I mean, imagine getting Will Johnson on that defense, and then obviously you'd still have Jalen Johnson. You got Tyreek Stevenson still there. So, I mean, they got Nick McLeod. Remember Nick McLeod?
Teams wonder.
Because you got to look at it like this is a chance for the Bears to kind of do what the Lions did a couple of years ago, where they kind of put everything together and they made a run. And so I think that's kind of where they're in right now. They're in that position where it's like, hey, if we just add a couple more pieces, then I think we can make a run at this to at least get into the playoffs. They could be the surprise team of the NFC for all we know, with obviously with their new coach.
Yeah, I mean, the only concern I have is that they do already like their cornerbacks. I think defensive line is probably what they want to do. I don't see him going Shamar Stewart. Like, this is the one pick of the entire top 10 that I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do. Because
maybe
it
Derrick
could be
Harmon,
Mike Green.
Maybe Walter Nolan.
They brought in, didn't they bring in Grady Jarrett from the Falcons?
They got Montez Sweat, Grady Jarrett, Garvin Dexter, and then Deo. I can never say his last name. Ode Ingbo.
You're on your own here, brother. I'm not going to help you out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try.
Taryn's saying Malachi Starks as a safety.
Yeah, I mean, but do you want to go safety top 10? Like, that's where, like, the positional value conversation comes into play.
Typically, you don't go safety.
They just re-signed Jaquan Brisker to a pretty big deal. I don't think they would. They have Kevin Byard. I think it's Mike Green here, to be honest with you. And I hate that for San Francisco, but I think it's Mike Green. Get an edge rusher, fix your defense. However, again, you can pitch me on the idea of a running back here, and I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, but I don't think the running back out of North Carolina, Amarion Hampton, I don't think you take him this early. I think you could take, they don't need a quarterback, but you could try to go for a quarterback, but if you need one, but they don't need one. So at this point, I mean, what about Tyler Warren? I know, but you just said they have Cole Kmet, unless they are in love with that guy.
Which means nothing, but I don't know.
It doesn't, but, or there's Kelvin Banks, where it gives them another offensive lineman. It's a tackle, and I know that they went out and they made a trade to get Joe Tooney, who's a left guard. You got Braxton Jones, and you have Jonah Jackson, and then, of course, they went out and they got Drew Dahlman. Why wouldn't they?
You still mad about that?
And they did like it was nothing. They were like, oh, yeah, we'll get, come on down. It was like, oh, my God. But, I think that one of the philosophies that he's going to have there is that he wants a dominating offensive line like he had with the Lions.
Sure.
And if that follows true, then I think Kelvin Banks is probably the guy they're going to take to give them a more solidified offensive line. He wants as many options and depth as possible to make sure that O-line is as unstoppable as the Lions O-line.
Well, if that's the case, why wouldn't you just go Josh Simmons and hope it works out because you hit a home run at 10 if you do?
Josh Simmons, you could. Let's see.
Again, I think it's Mike Green or Marion Hampton. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I've kind of taken over this draft with you, so I will let you pick this, and it'll be on your shoulders the entire show. If it's your fault, if it's wrong.
Oh, yeah, it's my fault on the Bears had a bad draft because Andre picked Kelvin Banks Jr. I don't think Kelvin Banks is like the gangbuster of all offensive tackles, but I do think. Let me see one more thing. Who is their tackles? They have Darnell Wright, and they have but they have nobody. No other. Well, they have other offensive linemen that nobody under tackle. That is. And then they have Braxton Jones, who's good.
Yeah. But does Joe Thuney count as a guard or a tackle?
They have him listed as guard, and his backup is Bill Murray, the actor. That's a little. They're a little thin there.
Heck yeah.
Okay, so if you're gonna go any talent that's NFL ready, I hate to say this, but it's gonna be Mike Green. Yeah. He's a guy you can plug in and just say go.
So now you're deflecting off of the offensive line thing to my pick initially to the
because everything else is a project, and I'm looking at like this guy's ready to rock. Okay. And if this is a team in the Bears that wants to go after it this year,
yeah,
he'd be the most impactful player, bearing any kind of like, I got arrested. So other than that, then this guy, he's ready to rock. So let's go on a whim here.
Yeah,
let's go Mike Green. Now we're at the last pick, which I really wanted. But then I was like, I can't have a bias. Like, where I'm like, no, I don't want to pick him because I want to get him with San Francisco.
Just okay, like every pick is like Sean Dolak, Mac McWilliams, like
McWilliams.
Caleb Johnson's next. Like all these like middle tier players. You like.
So now we're at 11. Now look, the Niners could easily trade back from 11 and take in the early 20s. And still get a bevy of picks back in return, which I think that's what they're going to do. But if they don't make a trade,
I don't think they're going to be able to trade back, though. All the indications, all the reports say like every team wants to trade back and nobody wants to trade up. Like the Giants aren't moving up here. The Saints aren't moving up here. Obviously, the Browns aren't moving up here.
No one's going to say that. I mean, no one's going to be like, we're trying to move up, and some of them might, but no one wants to play their hand.
The only team I can see trading up here is either the Colts for Tyler Warren. I don't think there's a concern San Francisco, the Cowboys, or the Dolphins take him before it gets to the Colts at 14. You can maybe talk about, the Broncos, but that's back to pick 20. The only thing about the Broncos is I could see them winning a running back, but also Sean Payton is so aggressive. If he likes a player a lot, he'll get him. So sure, there is room for that to be a possibility, and it's one I've mocked plenty of times on my own show. But I just don't think there's like a bona fide, I got to get that guy on my team prospect here, because I'm not sure how the NFL views Tyler Warren, whereas the media is like in love with him. How do teams actually feel about him inside the top 10?
So when we look at the number 11 pick now, if we're just going to pick straight up, obviously, this is going to have its own rankings. I don't think they draft Will Johnson. I wouldn't take Will Johnson. I would trade out of the spot if someone were available. A team might want Will Johnson or Shamar Stewart, but even Shamar Stewart is not a guy that I'm sold on as like, yeah, this is it. This guy's very raw. So he's a guy that may not be good until his second or third year because he has to develop his skills.
The one thing that concerns me with the first top 10 picks and what happens with San Francisco is the fact that the edge rushing room is Abdul Carter in tier 1, Mike Green in tier 2, barring some red flags. Then it's a bunch of other guys that you like but aren't in love with, guys you can see working out, but there's questions around their productivity in college or how they fit in the scheme, or they just have some small nitpicks on their game that may deter you from taking them at 11. If Mike Green is there and the red flags are clear, I think it's a clear cut. Take him. You love him. He's bona fide number 2 edge rusher in the entire room. Yeah. Across from Nick Bosa, you get a home run pick here and you love it. Hopefully his red flags are clear for his own sake and the persons that accused him's sake. That said, I don't love Shamar Stewart here. I think he screams Cody Pay, Tyree Wilson, big athletic freak, and I get it. The Senior Bowl stuff was awesome. There's weight concerns. You lose 20 pounds, you lose 15 pounds. Will your power translate to the NFL? He's not a finesse player whatsoever. You can talk about James Pierce Jr. here, but there is some does he love football conversations.
Yes.
There was an arrest when he was at college for weapons charges. Those charges were dropped against him. So how does that look? I also don't think he's a scheme fit. I think he fits more as that 3-4 outside linebacker role compared to a hand in the dirt, 4-3 edge rusher. I'm not taking a linebacker. You can pitch me on a person like Walter Nolan. You can certainly pitch me on Derrick Harmon. And that's where things get tricky, because if Mike Green's there, you take him and you can get your defensive tackle on day 2, probably 2 or 3 of them. You can go Omar Norman Lott on day 2. They'd love that. You can go Alfred Collins on day 2, or CJ West, Cameron Jackson on day 2 from Florida. But now where you've kind of been pigeonholed into a defensive tackle, I think it's either Nolan or it's Derrick Harmon, and that's it.
Yeah. For me, I would go with Walter Nolan. I like his pass rushing ability. I do think that there are things he has to work on in terms of, against the run game and not being pushed off his position. But I think he's young enough, big enough, and skillful enough that he could be a bigger difference maker than Derrick Harmon will be in his entire career. I've even heard comparisons for Walter Nolan to Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. So with that being said, my pick, the safe pick for me, would be Walter Nolan. I think that's the guy I'd feel most comfortable with going at with number 11.
I think the safest pick in an all-around conversation is Derrick Harmon. However, if you want that super traitsy, has high potential, can actually be a bona fide game changer by himself, maybe not in year 1, but he'll come and start in year 1, get the reps he needs. But you get Walter Nolan and you pair him with somebody else next to him. Let's say it is a CJ West or Cameron Jackson or an Omar Norman Lott. There's certainly drawbacks to Walter Nolan. There's been some effort problems, albeit I think those can change when you have Chris Kosaric yelling in your face on a constant rep.
And think about it too. He's going to have Nick Bosa to his right, and he's probably going to have another draft pick to his left, who it could be, like you said, Omar Norman Lott. It could be anybody. And then, so for me,
also just with Walter Nolan, and not to interrupt you, but it's he was at Texas A&M before that, and they have no idea what they're doing with defensive linemen. He goes to Ole Miss, their entire defensive changes, and I think that is something that's kind of not being talked about enough here, where there's questions of, well, a couple of different high schools, a couple of different colleges, and was it all kind of putting it together in one year and that carries him? It's certainly a conversation you can have, and I wouldn't downplay it at all. However, I think Harmon's a safer pick, but if you want that uber traitsy, I think fits more what San Francisco likes in their defensive tackles, I can see Nolan being that guy. However, on the flip side, San Francisco seemingly trusts what Oregon does on their defense. They got Lenore in previous regimes. They had Buckner and Armstead. They just trust what those guys do out there.
That is
in
true.
Oregon. So I don't think they've talked to Harmon with the top 30 visit, albeit I don't view top 30 visits as this big grandiose deal. Are they important? Sure, but they're not always built up to what they actually are. So I'm good either one. I'm just saying that Harmon's safer, probably going to be a more consistent player earlier on in his career. However, Nolan, I think, can be a higher upside player as his career progresses.
6'4", 313 versus 6'3", 296. So, I mean, overall, Derrick Harmon is bigger. But, okay, well, let's go with Derrick Harmon. Okay. I'm going to draft Walter Nolan. There we go, and we're done! Either way, I got dupe. Either way, I think if you go with Derrick Harmon or Walter Nolan, it's a win. Because you need help at the defensive tackle position. My only concern with Walter Nolan is that there is some questions about his ability to stop the run on a consistent basis. Not but we know they can, but it's can he consistently do it and hold his position during different run schemes. While I think with Derrick Harmon, he's more of a bigger placeholder that is not going to get moved. And that's why originally I was in love with Kenneth Grant, because he's such a big dude that is not going to get moved around. But again, Kenneth Grant, his stock has fallen pretty hard. I mean, there was talk early on that he was nearly a top 10 pick. And now look at, he's ranked at number 38, which means that he'll probably go somewhere in the 20s.
Right. And I think, the defensive tackle position is so interesting this year because it's a deep class for sure. But, you have someone like Nolan, who I think if you get Nolan, I think it could benefit him a ton to pair him with a run-stuffing defensive tackle, a space eater, and kind of let his pass rush do a lot of the work for him in year one. You have guys you like in your room but don't love: Clea Davis, Evan Anderson, and Jordan Elliott, albeit none of those are game-changing pieces. That said, if you want to go Derrick Harmon in round 1, I wouldn't say no, because in round 2, you get Omar Norman a lot. You kind of get that pass rushing, big hands, aggressive, just smacking dudes around, pass rushing play style at DT as well. So it's hard to pinpoint who they'll take. I can see it one or two ways. And if you go Nolan and CJ West or Darius Alexander, will probably be gone by round 2, or you go, you go with Cameron Jackson, or you go with Ty Robinson. There are a lot of players you can take to pair with Nolan who you'd love. Jamari Caldwell from Oregon as well. But if you go Harmon, you can also pair a more well-rounded player with a more specialist type with Omar Norman Lott and others. TJ Sanders from South Carolina, who I'm sure Salah will love in round 2 if they pair him with a player like Harmon in round 1.
I mean, I just think the Niners are so big on pass rush that I think they'd be willing to say, okay, let's go Walter Nolan, because we know that's his specialty, is getting pressure on the quarterback, and that's what we want. But again, it feels like if you get a guy who is focused on pass rush and maybe has some issues with, defending in the run game, then we're right back where we were with Javon Hargrave, where he was supposedly a good pass rusher, not so good against the run. So what they do, everyone just ran the ball directly at him. And then it was an issue, almost every week until this last year, where he just, tore his tricep and he was out. But any pick they go with, I think, is going to be a win. Maybe Derrick Harmon, maybe Walter Nolan, Tyreek Williams. I'd even like Kenneth Grant, but at this point, I don't think it's even going to happen until later on in the draft. So we'll see how it shakes out. April 24th is the NFL draft. I will be live bringing you the draft. I'll have Aaron from 49ers First Takes. Hopefully, Sterling, if he's not working, I'd love for you to join me. Johnny Dell might also be joining me as well. And we're just going to do the first day, and that's it. And people were telling me, hey, can you do all 3 days? I'm like, yeah, let me just quit my job and just sit on my computer all day and ignore my family, But there it is.
Why take a back seat for?
They take a back seat
in round 7, brother. It's okay.
I know. I mean, come on. You got to go. Remember the commercials for the draft? You got to go deep. Yeah.
Well, that can be used in a lot of ways, brother, including the NFL draft. Honestly.
I mean, look, like back in the day, the first day of the draft used to start at fucking 7 or 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Get your coffee.
Yeah, you get your coffee. I was a kid just watching it in the morning in my room. Now it's like a primetime event. I'm like, oh my God. How things have changed.
Back when Joe Staley and Patrick Willis got drafted, I was playing Little League Baseball. My brother runs up and is like, Sterling, guess who we picked in the first round? And I'm like, dude, it's 8:30 in the morning. Yeah. Like, what's going on?
How it was.
I'm not even awake yet. It was great.
I know.
It was great.
It's the only draft that everyone tunes into.
Yeah.
Baseball tries to make their draft relevant. Nobody cares. And the NBA, it's still a crapshoot. And when you get even the top 3 picks may not even pan out. So you never.
Are you telling me you don't sit there for 30 rounds of the Major League Baseball draft and try to pick every single player on your board?
No.
You don't want the random kid from North Raleigh Underway Railroad High School and goes in the first round. You're like, I don't know who the hell this is, but he's going to be great one day in 20 years when he actually gets called up.
And Strawberry reacts, I agree. I love Darius Alexander. That's somebody that I would highly want him to draft with pick number 43.
If they traded back, it'd be a great pick.
I mean, he may be available at 43. I've done a lot of mock drafts where he's still there at 43, and if he was, I would easily take him. He's usually there with guys like TJ Sanders and Omar Norman Lott. Like how he says, Omar Norman, period. Lott.
Ronnie Lott's back, baby.
Ronnie Lott's back. He's back. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this segment of the 49ers. Sterling, where can everyone find you and all your content?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at 49ers Access. You can also find me wherever all the podcasts are sold, Spotify, Apple, everywhere else, Google Podcasts. You can also follow me on social media at 49ers_access is the Twitter, or X, 49ers.access is the Instagram, breaking down running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, and covering everything related to the San Francisco 49ers.
Definitely check out 49ers Access. He covers a lot, and he goes live multiple times a week. It's quality content, dude. That's why I keep bringing you back, because, dude, you're fucking good at what you do. and you're pretty cool too. So I'll give you that.
Toss it in towards the end, yeah.
And you just went to Japan.
I did go to Japan.
That's awesome. I'm dying to go there, dude. I'm just dying to go there.
Awesome.
Sterling, thank you so much for coming on here. We'll do it again, guys. When we come back, I'll be covering the Golden State Warriors and their win last night over the Memphis Grizzlies. I hate the Grizzlies.
Go Rockets.
Go Rockets. God, I hate the Rockets. Anyway, we're going to talk Warriors and then Giants when we come back. You're listening to NorCal Sports Report on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.